Welcome to This Explainer, everyone. Today, we're going on a linguistic excavation. Have you ever actually stopped to think about the stuff we say every single day? Like, really think about it? The English language is absolutely packed with phrases that, if you take them literally, sound completely absurd. They paint these ridiculous, sometimes hilarious pictures in our heads. So, we're going to put on our detective hats today and dig into the hidden histories behind some of the most famous expressions out there. All right, let's dive right in. Okay, so when someone says it's raining cats and dogs, they absolutely do not mean that household pets are plummeting from the sky, right? What they actually mean is just, well, it's raining really heavily. Or think about the phrase, bite the bullet. Nobody literally intends to chew on live ammunition. They just mean they've got to bravely face a super unpleasant situation. These phrases are basically linguistic paradoxes. And honestly, finding out who first decided that heavy rain looked like falling pets, or why chewing metal became a symbol of bravery, it's literally like an archaeological dig through language. So here is our agenda for today's detective dossier. First, the mystery of idioms. Then we'll look at why we keep these weird expressions around. After that, we'll open two major case files, raining cats and dogs and bite the bullet. And finally, we'll wrap the whole thing up with the power of metaphor. All right, Section 1, the mystery of idioms, or digging up language. Let's lay down a few ground rules for our investigation. So the most crucial point here is understanding exactly what we're even dealing with. An idiom is basically a group of words where the established, accepted meaning differs, either entirely or just partially, from the literal definitions of the words themselves. They are a huge part of natural language because they rely on meanings that have settled through time and usage, not through strict logic. Think about someone learning English. If they translate word for word, saying rain means water and cat means the animal, they're going to be completely lost when they hear raining cats and dogs. The literal translation just leads to a totally incorrect understanding. Let's look at a few classic examples here. Take break the ice. Literally, you're smashing frozen water. Idiomatically, you're just trying to survive an awkward networking event by starting a conversation. Or what about spill the beans? You aren't dumping your dinner on the floor, you're revealing a juicy secret. And hit the nail on the head doesn't mean you're suddenly doing carpentry, it means you said exactly the right thing, or hit on the absolute truth. Mastering these phrases is absolutely essential to mastering natural English. Moving right along to Section 2, why keep weird expressions? Artifacts of the past. Let's talk about how language acts as a living artifact. The truly fascinating truth here boils down to a single powerful concept. The expression remains, but the reason disappears. Because let's be real, language is not a perfectly logical system. It's actually a living record of human history. Our words are shaped by wars, trade, religion, seafaring, farming, medicine, literature, even old folk superstitions. A phrase might make perfect literal sense in a very specific historical moment, but then society changes. The conditions that created the phrase vanish completely, yet the expression somehow survives. So centuries later, here we are, using these phrases flawlessly without having any clue where they came from. It leaves us with these incredible linguistic puzzles.
And that brings us to Section 3, Case File Raining Cats and Dogs, the Stormy Mystery. Time to open our first official case file.
Okay, we are looking at one of the most famous and, frankly, most baffling idioms in the English language. When we track the historical artifacts, we find variations popping up in 17th century texts. For instance, in 1651, the English poet Henry Vaughan used a phrasing associating storms with dogs and cats. And then just 1 year later, in 1652, the playwright Richard Brome wrote the line, "It shall rain dogs and polecats." So the association between heavy storms and these specific animals was definitely brewing in 17th century literature. But why cats and dogs? Well, this brilliantly illustrates the challenge of our investigation, because we actually have 4 competing theories. And get this, none of them are definitively proven. Step 1 takes us all the way back to Norse mythology. Odin was associated with storms and wind, and was often accompanied by wolves or dogs, while black cats were linked to witches and storms in folk beliefs. Step 2 is a kind of bizarre linguistic theory. Some researchers suggest a link to the old word Katutup, which meant a powerful waterfall, sort of like the cataracts of the Nile. Over time, Katutup might have just been mispronounced into cats and dogs. Step 3 is the grim literal theory.
Old British cities had terrible drainage. Heavy rains would completely flood the streets. After the storm, the streets were unfortunately littered with the bodies of dead animals, making it look like it had literally rained cats and dogs. It's a delightfully morbid visual, but it does lack historical proof as the true origin. And finally, step 4, the metaphorical theory. In Old English culture, cats and dogs were famously depicted as constant enemies. So a loud, chaotic, raging storm might have simply been compared to a massive, chaotic animal fight. So which one is it? Honestly, the most scientific answer we can give you today is that we just don't know for sure. The expression is super old, the meaning is crystal clear, but the ultimate origin is completely unresolved. Even the U.S. Library of Congress notes that the origin is unknown, and they just list the competing theories rather than picking one. And you know what? That's perfectly okay. In linguistic science, uncertainty is often the correct answer. It is far better to embrace the mystery than to invent some exciting story and present it as historical fact. Let's turn the page to section 4, case file, bite the bullet, the painful truth. Let's open up our second case file. We use this phrase today to mean enduring something painful instead of just running away from it. You know, like I hate going to the dentist, but I'll just have to bite the bullet. Now, the most famous origin story for this one is incredibly dramatic, which begs the question, did wounded soldiers in ancient wars actually bite down on lead bullets to endure surgeries without anesthesia? It's definitely a vivid, painful image, right? A wounded soldier, a field medic, zero pain relief, and a literal bullet clamped between the teeth. But the reality doesn't really match the myth. It's pretty easy to see why the story got so popular. Surgeries before modern anesthesia were agonizing, and patients certainly needed something to bite down on. But researchers are quick to point out a major flaw here. There's just no solid historical evidence that soldiers were specifically given bullets to bite for this purpose. I mean, from a practical medical standpoint, it makes way more sense to have a patient bite down on a piece of wood or leather, rather than a hard metal bullet that would likely shatter their teeth. That's just a whole new level of agony nobody asked for. Plus, the linguistic record just doesn't support the phrase originating from this medical practice anyway. So let's look at the actual historical timeline for biting the bullet. There is a strong military connection, but it's very different from that whole surgery myth. Back in the 19th century, specifically around the Indian Rebellion of 1857, soldiers had to physically bite the paper cartridges of their rifles to open them. Rumors that these cartridges were greased with animal fats forbidden to certain soldiers contributed heavily to historical tensions. Now that's a real historical event involving literally biting bullets, though directly linking it to the birth of the idiom is still debated. What we do know is that one of the earliest clear written records of the phrase being used in its modern idiomatic sense is in Rudyard Kipling's 1891 novel, The Light That Failed. But remember our golden rule as linguistic detectives? The first written appearance does not equal the moment of invention. People likely used it in everyday spoken conversation for decades before Kipling ever wrote it down. And this brings us to our final section, Section 5, the power of metaphor, or living language. So why did bite the bullet survive and become so universally understood, regardless of where exactly it came from? Well, because the metaphorical imagery is just incredibly potent. It perfectly conveys a very specific feeling. Something painful is coming, you know it's coming, and you can't avoid it. So instead of fleeing, you just accept the pain. The phrase successfully transitioned from a highly specific physical act into a broad psychological and moral metaphor for bravery. Today, when you bite the bullet to tell your boss the truth, there is no literal bullet. There is no surgery. There's only a tough psychological confrontation. And that transition, that's the very essence of how idioms evolve and thrive. We've dug through centuries of history today, finding that our everyday language is basically built on the ruins of old superstitions, outdated technologies, and vivid metaphors. Which leads me to a final question to leave you with. What modern phrases are we using right now that will become the bizarre, untraceable idioms of the future? I mean, centuries from now, will linguistic detectives be arguing over why we said we ghosted someone or why we left them on read? Language is constantly evolving, and we are literally creating tomorrow's historical mysteries today. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep listening to the hidden history in the words around you.